Brakathe Yahweh, Brakathe Yahushai, Brakathe Yahweh, Brakathe Yahushai, call on Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakwadash, there's no digital pistol to the 12 tribes of Israel, double honors, whose labors we have entered in, 1 Peter 4:17, um, for the time come that the judgment, I'm sorry, for the time come for the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall be the end of them who obey not the gospel of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai?
Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Nothing new. Situation's old, but it's going to show you if there's nobody group. I mean, this is a big example of it's really about us, and this is a big example of what will come to us, because what they're accused of, we only do on a higher level. You hear the Israelites come out of everybody's mouth. You don't hear this organization. It's just a nobody organization.
And only jimmydore.com. So we have a special guest with us. We covered this story with Russia. It's all made up. I'm going to give you an update, and we have a special guest with us. There's no prison time for a Uhuru Russian conspiracy case. It was political speech. U.S. District Judge William Young sentenced an ex-member of the St. Petersburg activist group. Here we go. A federal judge said Monday that he is not inclined to give prison time in the case against members of the St. Petersburg-based Uhuru movement who were convicted in September of conspiring to act as Russian agents. I'm not kidding. In a sentence hearing Monday for Augustus C. Romaine Jr., a former member of the black activist group and one of the 4 convicted defendants, U.S. District Judge William Young said their conduct ultimately amounted to the exercise of free speech, even though they were convicted. The judge doesn't think that they committed a crime. Everything they did here was political speech, the judge said. I eminently disagree with all of their speech. I'm paraphrasing. These people spit on the flag that actually protects them. Well, it's not actually protecting them if they're being taken to court and convicted for speech. The 3 other defendants convicted in the case are scheduled for a separate sentencing hearing next week. We have one of those guests on in just a second. They include Amalia Shitela, the longtime leader of the Uhuru movement, and its umbrella organization allies. We have anything for this, right? The four were convicted in September trial on charges of conspiracy to act as agents of the Russian government without notifying the attorney general. A jury delivered not guilty verdicts for the more serious charge of acting as Russian agents. The government in the United States. Evidence showed the group communicated regularly with a Russian man, Alexander Ionov, who runs the organization called the Anti-Globalization Movement of Russia. That's what they pinned their whole case on, that they had communication with this guy from Russia. He, in turn, regularly reported on his activities to Russian intelligence agents. That's what they say. With funding from the Russian government, Ionov worked to develop relationships with American activists and separatist groups to exploit and inflame U.S. political direction, which they didn't, organizing protests and featuring pro-Russian messaging and propaganda in their newspaper, The Burning Spear.
And just know that if you said that George Soros uses money to influence American politics and such, that's anti-Semitic. But you could say this about another country.
Romaine, who goes by the name Ghazi Kadzo, left the Urus in 2018. He then started his own group in Atlanta, dubbed the Black Hammer, which continued to communicate with Ionov. Now, they say that they were CNN's Atlanta parroting Russian propaganda if you tell the truth about Ukraine or Syria. Prosecutors said Romaine recruited homeless people to participate in his demonstrations, which tended to be short-lived, really short-lived demonstrations where no one showed up. This is what you're convicting them.
Yeah, how much, the gospel, you clearly see millions, billions, really, of dollars, being invested to attack us and suppress the truth,
Don't you think Russia would be embarrassed? At sentencing, the judge noted their ineffectiveness, meaning the demonstrations. Listen to what the judge said this. This was not the Revolutionary Army marching down the street. This was 4 guys with a bullhorn and a puppy dog, split contradictory verdict. And not to you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela is a renowned political activist and author as well.
It's ridiculous. It's hard for me to understand. It's hard for me to understand why we were in court in the first place, in the sense that we were quite clear that we were not breaking laws. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that an organization that's fighting for self-determination, that spent more than 50 years fighting for self-determination, would abandon the quest for self-determination and turn ourselves.
And everything that he's doing, the Israelites are doing on a much bigger scale. Psalms 82. How long will ye justly judge and accept the persons of wicked? I say long. Defend the poor and the fatherless. Man, we are the poor. We're the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and the needy, deliver the poor and the needy, rid them out the hand of the wicked. So, these people are this is not even truly seditious speech. What we're saying is truly seditious, to overthrow their kingdom and whatever. He just sung, old pipe dreams that, that didn't work. You know, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. And I have said, ye are gods. You are children of the Most High. Indeed, you are Israelites. You are sons. You are princes of Yahweh Bashem Yahshua. You are princes of God. You are princes of power. Ye are gods. Ye are all children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations.
Over to Russia to be agents of Russia or any other force. So it's hard to understand, except that the charges were all political charges. They were created as political crimes, and that's what it's about.
And so why do you so was this just part of the Russiagate hysteria that they had to get a win because the Mueller report was such a failure with Donald Trump and they couldn't connect anybody criminally to Russia? Was this them just trying to go after you to try to
Genesis 25:26, and after they came out his brother, and his hand took out Esau's heel, and the name was Jacob, and Esau was 60 years old when she bare him. So even coming out the womb, Jake had the had the hand his hand on Esau's heel coming out the womb, showing that he you know that Jacob is holding Esau in, through the spirit. That's what he's condemning all his lies that are no longer working. But we truly are tearing down this man's kingdom through the word.
win on the Russiagate front, or did you actually pose some kind of a threat to the FBI? Why would the FBI do this?
Well, I think part of it is true that it's a part of the whole RussiaGate thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that because people make these statements about how Donald Trump and how we allowed for some kind of Russian participation in elections in this country, or that Trump was an election denier. But the reality is, where we saw the election denial start was with Hillary Clinton,
Correct.
Who rejected the notion that Trump had won the election, who said it was Russia, 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 and they spent for the duration of his presidency trying to make it impossible for him to govern. And so it was Clinton, it was the Democratic Party, and people talk about Trump representing a pro-fascist kind of movement, but if anything having to do with taking away people's right to speech, people,
especially that this man being teared down. Just speaking of what will happen in the future, it's seditious. Speaking against the morals of Russia is more just than Babylon. The real world more just than Babylon, and that's seditious to teach. And the beast which I had saw was like unto a leopard. Speaking of the Greek Empire, so the new Roman Empire was like the Greek Empire. His feet were as the feet of a bear, so his feet were was the end of him was the Persian Media Empire, which spirit is being put back on the Russians. You know, his mouth. It, his mouth was as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power. His military, and the sea gave him great authority.
right, even to utilize the democratic process, then what we are facing with right now is something that came under the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris and her crew are responsible for this. So I think that's part of it.
Psalms 82:3, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, they that hate thee have lifted up thy head, they take a crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones, and they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance, for they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, the Hagarenes, Gabal, Ammon, and Amalek. So Edomites, and then Amalek. So Edomites are mentioned twice: the Philistines and the inhabitants of Tyre. So any concept of unifying identity of against Esau, he was going to cut that off. And against Esau and his narrative, you could come together and say, "Oh, we are blocked. What's being consumerist?" You could do that. You can't come, you know, You can't identify with outside of what Esau wants you to identify with and against his
And I
system.
think that it was part of it because Biden clearly and the Democratic Party were clearly in trouble going into the elections, and Sleepy Joe had lived up to his name. I think that he had to be tough, had to show toughness and what have you. And I think it's a real struggle that the United States is involved in right now, internationally and domestically. It was not we.
Revelation 17:6, and I saw the woman, America, drunken with the blood of the saints, the separated ones, the Israelites, and the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua. When I saw her, I wondered with great admiration, man. You know. So this the men, preaching the Israelite men preaching against the system.
Who climbed the walls of the Capitol and defecated on the floors and did all of these kinds of things. That's part of the internal contradiction that the United States is experiencing now. And it's experiencing contradictions internationally with the reemergence of
Jeremiah 28:8, the prophets that have been before me and before of old prophesied against many countries, against great kingdoms, of war, of evil and pestilence. So this gospel is a very specific. There's no higher sedition than preaching this gospel. It's even preaching this gospel is a higher level of sedition than literally sieging the city. Rebelling against the city. Um. So it's seditious, and and Israelites coming in a somewhat seditious accent, spirit, preaching against his kingdom, prophesying against his kingdom and the morals of his kingdom and the lies of his kingdom and the unjustness of his war. You're a target.
Russia as an international force intervening in an arena that had been recognized for the longest period of time as U.S. had hegemonic authority in places in Africa and places in the Middle East, and now there's Russia, now there's China. The whole economic and political configuration of the world now is being challenged in a very serious way. So, as a part of the response to that, we become scapegoats. That's part of what we're looking at, and part of it is too. And I want to say, I think this is important because
What will happen to him will happen to all the Israelites, man. Or the select Israelites who are selected to go through that. Matthew 10:18, and ye will be brought before governors and kings for my name's sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles.
That the U.S. would make us look peculiar because of our politics, our demands. But one reason they would look peculiar is because the U.S. government has done a lot of work to make sure of which issues and which politic from our community would be heard. We oppose the welfare slavery. We believe in self-determination. We fought for that. But this is not peculiar. The reason it may appear peculiar is because this whole issue of right to speech has been something that's crushed the voices of people who stood for self-determination in our community, and they would give us an Obama or give us a Kamala Harris and give us people like that, when that's not a reflection of the views and the aspirations of our community. So they create this crisis. They respond to a real crisis on the one hand, and then they give the people a boogeyman that's responsible for the problems that they have. And everybody in this country is upset. Everybody's upset. I mean, all the polls indicate everybody's upset. And so we become that instrument that they would use to create this false narrative, and they would also attempt to eliminate any criticism that Black people make about our conditions by saying it's Russian-inspired, it's under the control and direction of Russians. It has nothing to do with the relation, the real world that we exist in.
So here you are, a grassroots, on-the-ground organization, African Americans for 50 years, and so you're making a real critique of the Democratic Party during an election season, and that could take away their much-needed African American vote. That
Ecclesiastes 14:7, and if you do it good, you do it unwillingly, at his last he will declare his wickedness. I mean, he will do it unwillingly, at the last he will declare his wickedness. So, none of this good stuff is for good, politics, whatever. The welfare, anything they have given us, it's only been to destroy us. So, you're preaching an you're preaching an anti-democratic message to Black people. You're a criminal.
they would need, and so they needed to silence you and discredit your critique of what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats have failed to do, and what they have actually done. And so that's what this is about. That's what this is about. Okay. Yeah.
That's what it's a promise anything. They try to frighten Black people that if you don't vote for us, then you're going to get Trump or you're going to get, a nastier version of us, et cetera. So there's nothing. And we challenge that.
Keep you between the two horns.
That's illegitimate. And they also promote this welfare slavery. So we say self-determination. We don't want to see people living on their knees, begging, et cetera. We want to be a self-determining people.
So can you explain?
They want Jake crying over DEI. You see, all these people can act like they're woke and they're whatever, but woke just means you're left. It doesn't mean that you're, the Esau is trying to get you. All these systems are made to trap you and to ensnare you. You're just left on Esau's side. They want you crying over these because it shows you people can act like they're woke, but they're looking for Esau for liberation through Esau's system. Salvation for them is just a nice house and getting all the American dream. So,
Quickly, what you mean? What you oppose welfare slavery?
I mean that there's a whole institutionalized welfare system.
I hope this lesson was edifying to you. Call on Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakwadas.